going to call us to order. It is 6:43. Shama, if you could please roll call who is present.
Present Natalie Silly.
Yes.
Debbie Braun.
Yes.
JC Herman.
Yes.
Martha Gaines.
Yes.
Elaine Siegel.
Yes.
And Dr. Patricia Effiam.
Here I am visiting.
Hello. Absent is Aiden Bernstein.
For now. And then I think when she joins, I think you just note what time she joins. Is that correct? Okay. I don't see any citizens who have joined us. So no citizen comments. Okay, so this is clearly a special meeting. We haven't met in a while. We don't usually meet on this Thursday of the month. We each were emailed in the agenda 3 questions that we will have 3 to 5 minutes each to respond to. I'm hoping that there was some thought, put into this before we all met. And then we will move into executive session to talk about our plans moving forward in terms of a consultant and all of that. Does anybody have any questions before we get started?
I do, JC. As far as timing, should Shama take that on?
I figured
Or are you comfortable doing that? I'm sorry.
I will do the timing. I've got a timer set up over here. I figured it'd be hard to watch the time and take notes at the same time. Aiden. Aiden, can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello, it's so nice to hear you.
Yes, I'm so sorry. How are you all?
I'll speak for all of us. We're doing all right.
Good. Okay, all good. All right. Good to see your faces. You too.
So I literally just called us to order. We just went through roll call, and then I just kind of explained our plan for our special meeting today. We'll each have 3 to 5 minutes for our responses to those 3 questions. And then we will go into executive session to talk about our consultancy moving forward. Does anybody want to volunteer to go first? Should we go alphabetical? Should we go according to Shama's, all our faces on her screen? Does anyone have any preferences? No? Okay, I'll volunteer to go first. And I will time myself. Watch, I want to forget to time one of you. Okay, so in terms of what I've learned in my time on the committee, I've developed a better understanding of the local history of racial disparities. I've become more aware of and in tune with events around our community that have a racial component to them. I feel more confident in understanding the history and the impact of these events while also seeing some of the limitations that stop me from understanding more. I'm more confident in how I engage in equity work, more likely to acknowledge the privileges I'm aware of, and I'm learning to acknowledge as privileges that I have not been aware of before. I've gained skills that will help put my knowledge to work and have an idea of what new skills I feel like I need to acquire to get more of this work done. In terms of the next question, where do I see room for growth about racial equity? I know that I need to learn how to connect with other communities. It is totally outside of my nature just to go out and make friends, but that is clearly something that I need to learn how to do if I'm going to be doing this work. I need to become more aware of and establish relationships with organizations and people who have led the way in our community up until now, as well as others who are currently active in accomplishing equity work. I need to learn to use the equity lens that we created to review policies and practices within RPD, as well as to navigate occurrences in the community that might come up. I also need to become well-versed in OMA and Robert's rules to better fulfill my duties as chair. And then for the last question, what's my vision for the REDI committee over the next year? I have to admit, I was really excited to answer this question. I envision the REDI committee getting to work. Once we have been trained on using the equity lens, we have policies and procedures to review. We have organizations and people to develop relationships with. We have events and holidays to acknowledge and celebrate in a planned and thoughtful way. I'd love to see RPD regularly host racial healing circles, offer courses in personal equity development, and maybe even host an annual Evanston Equity Summit to bring awareness, to raise awareness and to bring people together who are dedicated to this work. I hope we can connect with the community in person and through social media in a way that opens up conversations about race and culture in a way that is respectful and brings forth connections across gender, racial, cultural, political, and economic divides. Because that's the Evanston that I see and believe in, one that is diverse in many ways and is willing to develop the knowledge to create the action that proves that we see people as humans who all share the same rights and responsibilities, regardless of the color of our skin, the origin of our ancestors, what our political decisions may be, what uniforms we wear. We are all human and should all be held to the same standards and should all be entitled with the same privileges. Does anybody else want to go next, or am I just going to start picking people across the screen?
I'll go next.
Awesome. I was going to pick you anyway, Debbie. You're at the top.
Well, I'm really short. I don't have such great like you did. Mine's just short and sweet. What I've learned is that one of the big things I've been thinking about is how people can sit in a room all on an equity committee with the same, seemingly the same goals, and yet each have their own agenda. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about just groups of people talking about equity and how that you come in with your own agenda. I come in with my own agenda, and I assume other people do. And I've learned that it's very difficult to really get down to the crux of what needs to be done. Room for growth, personally, is that I need to listen more. And I really need to, I won't say not get as emotionally involved, because I don't ever want that to happen. But I really need to understand what I want to do with it and where I want to be with the whole equity issue, and what really is equity and what people are we talking about, and get a clearer thing. And my vision for the committee is I'm very confused about this committee. And I feel like we don't really have a total understanding of what the REDI committee should be. And my vision, if we continue at all, would be for us to really do some really serious work about what are we here for? What are we doing? Who are the people that we're really, I mean, I think everything you mentioned is great, JC, but I can't see this committee really moving on. I just think that we don't have a clear goal of what the REDI committee is. But I like all the ideas that you had on a social, on a social level. And that's it.
Natalie, would you like to go next?
Sure. Okay, hold on. Let me pull up my, okay. In my time on the REDI committee, what have I learned about racial equity? I think some of the biggest things that I have learned, my biggest takeaways up until this point is, well, first of all, not to be reactive to things that that may happen or concerns that people bring up. I think when we started this work, before we started this work, the kind of impetus for like being here today, you know, kind of a string of things occurred, and they were not things that I had any experience dealing with or managing or responding to. And so the response, and not just from me, but I think from you know, everybody at Ridgeville, was very reactive. And it was, you know, like we have to like we didn't ask any questions. We just had to like solve a problem. And so I think one of the biggest things I've learned is not to be reactive and when to ask questions, and how to ask questions. There's certainly room for growth in that area for me, but I think that's the biggest thing. I think the other big thing, and probably more importantly, the thing that I've learned is when to shut up and to listen. I think the biggest thing about that is just this idea of like taking a beat and stepping back and looking around me and looking at who's at the table. And if my voice is louder, or there's certainly people missing from the table, then that's a big sign that I need to be quiet and, create space for other voices. My personal challenges, the second question, I think and I'm thinking about this really just in terms of my job as program director at the Park District. Something that I feel challenged by is obviously spreading the word about Ridgeville Park District and who we are and what we offer. That has been my, biggest mountain to climb since I started the job, and will probably always be my biggest mountain to climb, is just, letting people know, first of all, that we exist, second, that they live in us, and that we have lots of cool things to offer, and just getting the word out there. And furthermore, developing relationships with everyone in our community, the pockets of our district that are further away, that really don't know about Ridgeville or what we have to offer, really doing outreach and developing relationships with those communities within our community as well has been a challenge. Navigating hard conversations is something that I'm challenged by. So I did learn when to ask questions, but sometimes navigating that conversation is hard. And I have a hard time with conflict or confrontation. Those things just make me nervous. And sometimes when we're talking about equity, it can feel scary. So that's a challenge. And then the other thing I'm challenged by is trusting my gut, making hard decisions, and asking for help. But when things come up that are either criticisms or concerns, and my gut tells me, that there's either an easy answer or a solve for this, like sticking with that and just resolving the issue instead of kind of letting it spiral out of control, if that makes any sense. Trusting my gut. And then my vision for the REDI committee, I'm really excited. What?
One more minute.
Oh, got it. Okay. My vision, expanding work into other areas of equity. I'm really excited to take all the things that we've learned and focus on in terms of racial equity and really be able to expand that into other areas of equity. I'm excited for the REDI committee to inspire program ideas for me and accessibility to those programs. I'm excited. My vision for the REDI committee is to also help our community understand equity and to help them get involved in positive ways in our work at Ridgeville Park District. Done.
You came in within time. Good job. Elaine, would you like to go next?
So one of the things that's been most interesting to me is to see the equity lens, the equity framework. It differs a great deal from the legal lens dealing with issues of bias and discrimination. That's been fascinating, and I've really enjoyed and appreciated it. I won't duplicate what other people have said. I agree with, I think, everything that everybody said. But I think that another thing that has been important has been learning more about listening and the importance of deep listening, listening to other people and learning how kind of the interface between one's personal views of other people and kind of how to negotiate that difference. In terms of room for growth, that's going to sound very much like what I learned. What I've learned, I think that there's much more to learn about deep listening and how to listen to different voices. And I look forward to more training in that and deepening of that understanding. Similarly, I think that this analytic framework, this equity lens, and the concepts of equity that we've talked about, learning how to apply those in concrete situations is something that I see as a growth area. In terms of vision, I agree with outreach. I won't embellish on that. You all have talked about that very well. I would consider whether Ridgeville might be a place, and whether the the REDI committee might have a role in promoting courageous conversations that that cut through the community, help increase community understanding and drawing the community together. I'd like to see that happen. And another thing that I had completely, that took me entirely by surprise, but that I'd like to share, looking at this issue of the troubling graffiti, and I think the Park District's done a great job of dealing with that. I think the Evanston police have done a great job of dealing with it, balancing out expressive values, along with possible threats. We have alerted, Fresh Anointing, the Fresh Anointing congregation to, the potential danger that those graffiti represented. I think that there's been a growing awareness. I hear people in the community talking about them. It's curious because on the one hand, it could be nothing, and on the other hand, it could be quite serious. And so that's kind of a balancing act in trying to understand it that I've seen with people. Now, that brings me to the training that I've often talked about that the ADL, the FBI, and other agencies sponsored. Perhaps that's something that Evanston would be interested in, and it might be something that we can present to them as a potential for growth and preparedness in our community. Should there be the programming that they were talking about applied to a variety of different kinds of emergency situations. And I've mentioned, I think before, the kind of planning that they encouraged communities to engage in. And that might be something that the Park District could learn about and consider. I'm not prescribing any of that. I'm just thinking that it might be a possibility. So that would be some things that I would propose.
Thank you. Martha, you're next on my screen.
Okay, so speaking of weird animal people, I have to give my cat his insulin shot, and I only have 1 minute and 30 seconds on my timer for that. So I'm gonna run and do that, but I don't want to miss anybody. Can I request that we take like a 90-second break? Is that okay? 60 seconds? I can probably do it in like 45 seconds, actually.
I'm going to leave this decision up to the group. I don't want to make this decision for anyone. You're fine with it, Debbie?
Okay. I'm gonna go as quick as I can.
Okay, so while Martha goes and does that, I will take this quick minute. For anyone that doesn't already know, there is a lawsuit against District 65 for the anti-racist curriculum. There's an article in the Patch about a rally that was held on Monday. My kids and I attended. It was fantastic. I don't know if there's any video of it, but if there is, I highly recommend it. There were some really great speakers with really great things to say. I will be adding it to our agenda for our first meeting in August, because there's also a petition. If any of you want a copy of the petition, I can get it to you. And I'm hoping that we as a board may recommend to, or we as a committee may recommend to the board that Ridgeville also sign the petition. There's a lot of other, I believe there's at least 90 other organizations in Evanston that have signed off, including other, like preschools, churches, and that sort of thing.
And JC, can I just add? This is Pat. I just want to add, this is pretty serious. It's gotten pretty serious, and the superintendent has come under physical attack. Just last week, a brick was thrown through his car window, the rear seat of his car window. It's gotten very, very ugly over just exactly what we're talking about, this equity work. It's easy to talk about. It's much more difficult to implement.
Yeah, and you know, I think that really came out in the speeches on Monday. This idea of like it's not going to be easy. Not only just because people oppose, just because they're difficult conversations to have. But one thing that I walked away from that, and you'll have to excuse me, I don't know offhand right now which speaker said this, but the idea that a lot of people that are interpreting an anti-racist curriculum as being anti-white, and in reality, an anti-racist curriculum is a pro-human curriculum. And I think that was a really strong theme throughout the speakers on Monday. All right, Martha.
Yes, I'm back. Thank you for waiting for me. Okay, so I don't have the thing printed out. I'm gonna just like minimize the Zoom so I can see the thing at the same time. Okay, so I wanna sort of highlight some key points instead of talking a ton. I kind of want to just you know, highlight the most important things to me in my answers to all of these questions. So in terms of what I've learned, I want to focus on just the general idea of what I've learned about racial equity in the realm of being an elected official for you know, an entity that makes decisions that affect the community very directly, and in a way that not a lot of people understand exactly how our decision making processes work, when we meet, you know, how everything works basically. And when it comes to what we talk about, and I say we meaning everybody, about institutional racism in our country today, you know, Ridgeville is absolutely an institution, and in terms of the history that plays a role in every single institution in our country, I mean, if anyone at any point in time, even if it was a while ago, but certainly right now, feels that, you know, equity work is out of place at Ridgeville, that's incorrect, because it's something everybody needs to be focusing on in every institution all the time. You know, not all the time to the exclusion of the other things that need to be worked on as well. Not all the time with the same intensity that you would use if you were dealing with a huge issue that came up, of like an event that happened or something like that, or an issue that's brought to us by somebody in the community. But focusing on it all the time, in the sense that nothing's going to change in the ways we want to see in this country if we don't get really serious about talking about the ways institutions and the people who run them can do things differently and intentionally, and, you know, considering the lived experiences that differ from the lived experiences that they have had. And so I'm trying to say that what I've learned about racial equity over the past few years, I could write an essay on it, you know. So right now I'm trying to say that I've learned a lot thanks to Dr. Effiam, thanks to talking to all of you, thanks to paying attention to other things in the community and taking workshops and doing reading and all kinds of things. You know, the unique realm of how people running institutions, especially taxpayer funded, you know, institutions, should be talking about, thinking about, focusing on, etc., racial equity. And I want to continue to learn. You know, I really feel like I've kind of chipped an edge off of an iceberg there. I love the idea that we could all, you know, list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things that we've learned. I'm not feeling like I've done as nearly as much learning as I would have liked to have done at this point in time. But I want to be clear that I am not saying that anyone has done anything wrong. If anybody has, it's maybe me, because I think that, you know, we meet and we talk, and that's great, but there's a lot of time in between meetings. And I think it's just one of those things in life where it's up to us how much we go and dive down whatever rabbit holes we want to dive down in terms of additional learning, additional experience, additional connecting with other people. So I guess I'm kind of starting to go into that territory of where I would like to see growth for myself. I think that Dr. Effiam's, how am I on time, JC?
I was just about to let you know, you've got about another minute.
Okay. You know, I'm so thankful for Dr. Effiam's guidance this whole time, but I also know that I'm the kind of person, I'm sorry if you hear my cats fighting in the background. I'm going to let them work that out. I'm the kind of person where I need a lot of guidance. I need a lot of structure. I need to be told what's expected of me, and then I can thrive, you know, but sometimes I'm waiting around a little bit too much for guidance that really should be coming from me a little bit more than what I'm kind of coming at it with. And so that's a goal for me for sure, is kind of just stepping into the place of putting to work the learning that I have done, you know, the additional understanding that I have done or that I have achieved. What that looks like, I don't know exactly yet, you know, but I do know that generally speaking, I feel like, you know, it's definitely time that we as a committee, and I'll speak for myself too as an individual, sort of move forward and step from one big defined circle of doing trainings and workshops and learning into another circle of, you know, now we are feeling like we know how to do this work well enough that we're taking some additional steps. Let me find a way to wrap it up here. Okay, so vision for the committee over the next year, and this is definitely an area of growth for us as a committee as well. And you know, the pandemic really screwed things in a lot of ways in terms of our ability to do the town hall meetings and racial healing circles and all kinds of other literally in-person, person-to-person, community-based group activities, etc. I want to see us engaging the community more. And I have some ideas. I don't want to go use my, you know, time that I'm already out of right now to talk about that, but I've had enough of us, like as individuals sitting in our Zoom room and like talking with each other, and sometimes talking past each other, sometimes saying the same thing over and over again. I want to see us, speaking of moving from one circle to another, I want to see us engaging with the community, and I want to see the community coming forward and engaging on these things. You know, this is the work that institutions have to do, but I do not think that institutions and the people who run them should be doing these things in a vacuum, in a Zoom room by themselves. We need to see the community come out more, but I'm not saying that they're not, you know, it's on us to engage them, to like start that process. So, and the last thing I want to say is just that it's always been a vision for me, and it still is, that this committee is proactive, that this committee is, what can we do focused on equity? How can we engage with the community about equity? How can we do everything within our power to make sure that we are helping the Ridgeville Park District move in the right ways, do the right things when it comes to equity, instead of doing nothing, instead of being just, you know, not tuned into that kind of stuff, or even worse, doing the wrong things. And so that's why I view us, I'm not confused. Personally, I'm not confused at all about where I want to see us go. I want to see us proactive, as opposed to a committee that only gets sort of woken up from dormancy when it's time to deal with some complaint that's been brought to us. That approach is not working in our country when it comes to focusing on equity as often as, and as intensely as, and as importantly as we need to be seeing you know, some real change happen. So I'm sorry I went over, and sorry that I kind of spoke in general ways, but those are some of my thoughts on the questions.
Thank you. All right, Aiden, you're up.
That leaves me. Okay. So I'm looking at my notes that I'm definitely not as eloquent. You will need to walk away. Please excuse my children. As of course, Thursday nights I'm in charge, and which is why I'm outside. Go play on the swings, please.
Hi, Arlie.
Okay. So what things that I have learned since joining the REDI committee? I think I have learned that even though we all are, I think coming from a place of love and a place of wanting to do better, that that may not be enough right now. Sorry. That just the intent of wanting to be better and do better there hasn't been a lot of action, unfortunately, since we started this committee. And so I think that we all have the best of intentions, and I feel like I have the best of intentions, but I don't feel like I pushed hard enough to get us moving forward and doing activities, things that will engage the community and that will move us forward on our path to making Ridgeville a more equitable environment. I think that I learned that how important it is to have different voices and backgrounds and ideas present at the table when we are having these discussions. It pains me to look at the screen and see, there's the REDI committee is made up of mainly white women. And so that to me, what is the perception of other people in the community when they think, oh, Ridgeville and equity, it's mostly white women? Like, what does that mean? What is that? So what message does that send? So that is where I feel like we have some room for growth, and I have room for growth is reaching out and trying to include more biopic people who can help to lend their expertise and their stories and be that voice that we are lacking on the committee, and just to be making sure that we are making the spaces more welcoming, whether it be having ourselves at a table at the farmers market, having hosting book fairs or story times or things that let people know that we're here and we are on their side and we're trying to do better, and actually with actionable items as opposed to just having a meeting once a month. So that's my vision for us, is to diversify the committee, having something like, tangible. These are ideas that I think we've talked about, but we never move forward with them. But having some sort of book fair or books that we can give to have available for children to come and read, and even adults that have characters of color, that have stories that may, be for a story about an immigrant coming to, so that we can connect with people who are in our community, and setting up a table at the farmers market to just say, hey, here we are. What do you want to talk about? That's free and easy, and every Wednesday, and it's, an established location set up already, people already coming. I don't know how diverse the people are that are coming. So that could be another thing, is that we market saying, the REDI committee has this table full of books, and it has, we could work with Young Black and Lit, have them come to the, get them to come every Wednesday or something. Just something more actionable, I keep using that word. And then just a little, I guess I'm definitely at fault for this, but just better time management within our meetings. And we all are very social and like to chat, but sometimes I think we go off on tangents and then we get away from the agenda and we don't necessarily ever accomplish the tasks that we had set forth for ourselves. So that is my 2 cents.
You did well with time management. You left yourself 30 seconds. Okay. And I know this is not actually on the agenda, but I did want to invite Dr. Effiam to have a few minutes to speak. I thought that would make sense, if that's okay with everybody.
Oh, how thoughtful, JC. So let me give you all a couple of things to think about rather than pontificating. Let me give you a couple things to think about as you go into your meeting and think about what you want for the REDI committee. One of the big things is, and hear me, my illness has, contributed to some of the the meetings being slowed down. So hear this in that way and just hear it as things we need to think about. You have, in listening to you all, part of your frustration is you've lost sight of the fact that equity is not, it is a journey. And I know want results, but we must be very careful in what we think of as results. So I hear you when we want more bioptic people on the REDI committee. That's not necessarily the only solution. And that's a hard ask. We can go out and snatch a Black person or a person of color and put them on there and still not get any advance. Equity is a journey. That's why setting the metrics, it becomes very important for us, is so that we can advance. You all, you have done outstanding work, and that has nothing to do with me. I do think that the messaging that that Elaine brought to us, well, what we failed to do in that case was what we had in place a process, and the process was not to fix or to get rid of necessarily. We want to get rid of it, but in the right way. Is not to fix the problem or get rid of it, but to recognize we have a community that's being silenced, a Christian community that's being silenced because of this graphic art. Our job is not to determine how we fix that. Our job is to go out and hear the voices of the church and other people in the community, and then determine how we can best support them. So that becomes what that equity lens is about, is to say, hey, I see this is hurtful to me. It certainly must be hurtful to Pat Effiam. Let's reach out to the Pat Effiams and see what they need. They may say, we've got this. We've talked to the police. We're not worried about it. This person, in fact, is a member of our congregation. Our job is not to fix it. It's to listen to them. Is to identify the communities that might be wounded by this, and then go and listen to them. And so you've done good work. It's hard. It's often hard. And I'm going to throw in for a minute, I don't like to, but I'm going to throw in the word white privilege. It really is hard to stand back as a white person and say we haven't done anything, because we don't know if we've done anything. We haven't talked to the people that we want to do something for, right? So even on the committee, we have to ask the questions of the people we're trying to seek out. So how do we find you? Where do we find you? How do we go after you? Do you want to be a part of this meeting? How can we make you a part of this meeting? This is a slow process. And as a Black woman who's been at it over 30 years, it's incredibly frustrating. And it's incredible. It is, when you're watching people get hurt every day, it's incredibly frustrating. But we can't focus on our goals. We have to focus on what does the community that we're talking about need. And we just don't know. We haven't asked them. Now, certainly we've connected with the church and reached out. And I don't know if they've reached back or what, but whatever, we have certainly reached out to say, what do you need? But we have to keep pushing that agenda. And so I want you all to not be so discouraged, but to recognize that this is lifetime work, and it is not easy. And you have the systemic racism of people who are, you really don't care. We don't believe that you care. You've not done anything for us before. Don't resort to what we talked about in the beginning. Do not resort to going back to diversity. We just need to get more people who look different. Don't fall into that trap, because you'll stay forever frustrated. So I just want to encourage you to think about, and I heard some really good thoughts. Certainly training, but it's going to feel, if you do training, which I think you do need, there's no doubt about that. You need to structure it so it's quick, and I don't mean fast, but we have a clear timeline, and then again working through that equity lens and identifying 2 to 3 metrics or accomplishments that you'd like to see happen this year become very important. So there you have my 2 cents.
Thank you. You almost came in the 5 minutes too. Okay. So I think that puts us at moving into our executive session. I will entertain a motion to do that.
And I will say, if you just allow me, I will say good night at this juncture. And thank you all for all of your support. Please know that you can contact me at this number at any point. Yes, I have health challenges, but I've had health challenges for the last 20 years. So nothing special going on in that sense. But please know, if you need a word or something, let me know that.
Thank you so much, Pat.
You're welcome.
I wasn't necessarily seeing this as goodbye, so I wasn't planning on like
Oh,
thanking you for everything yet. So
no. I don't see it that way at all. I just meant in terms of the meeting tonight. I assume that you don't need me anymore.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Hi, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
Hi, Pat. Oh, she's gone.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to move to executive session. Natalie.
This is Martha. I'll second.
All right. Shama, if you could roll call us through that, and then we'll all switch over to that other link that Natalie sent us.
Yep. And please, committee members, respond with your full name.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, Shama, hold on 1 second. I'm so sorry. JC, what I put in the notes to you earlier, we didn't have a chance to talk about this. Natalie, correct me if I'm wrong. We are supposed to technically return to our original meeting to adjourn. Is that correct?
We do. Shama, you don't have to come back. I'll just take the time. I'll notate the time and I'll email it to you so you can put it in the minutes.
Great.
Okay, sounds good.
I do that for Julie when we do this.
Thank you, Martha. I forgot to mention that.
No, thank you.
You know what? JC will do that. JC will.
That's right, Natalie.
All right.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we said it now so that Shama knew that she was done and didn't have to sit in the Zoom link waiting for us or anything
You
like
don't
that.
have to go to the, I don't even think I sent it to Shama. So
It's just a technicality that we motion to come out of executive session, then we motion to adjourn so that happens publicly, et cetera.
Yep. All right. So Natalie has motioned and Martha has seconded. Yes?
yes.
Okay. And then please do respond with your full name. JC Herman.
Yes.
Respond with your whole name.
Oh, yes, JC Herman. Sorry.
Natalie Silly.
Yes, Natalie Silly.
Elaine Siegel.
Yes, Elaine Siegel.
Martha Gaines.
Yes, Martha Gaines.
Debbie Braun.
Yes, Debbie Braun.
Iden Nolan.
Heidi Nolan says yes.
And then I will excuse myself.
Thank you
Yes.
so much, Shama.
Shama.
Thanks.
Bye, Shama.
Hi,
Toodaloo.
Sean.
We actually, since everybody's gone, I don't think we have to go to the executives.
We lost Martha already.
Martha's gone, so we can do that.
All right, so we'll see you all on the other link
Okay,
then.
we'll see y'all on the other side.
Okay. See you in a minute.
I moved to end the meeting.
I second it.
Heidi
Natalie,
Nolan.
All right, everyone.
do a roll call, JC.
All right, Iden,
Yes, Heidi Nolan says yes.
Natalie Salee,
Natalie Silly says yes.
Martha Gaines,
Yes, Martha Gaines.
JC Herman, I say yes too. Thank you all so much. Look, we kept it all on time. Go us.